Today was my birthday. Ethan asked me what I wished for. I took off my earrings and tossed them aside, blew out the candles half-heartedly, then clasped my hands together with mock seriousness and said, "I wish we'd get divorced soon." That single sentence made Ethan freeze. The faint smile on his face slowly disappeared. After a moment, he sighed wearily and rubbed his temples. "You're still angry? Didn't I rush back already? Stop saying the word divorce all the time. You keep that up, and I might start believing it." I looked at him, exhaustion clearly written on his face. He had just spent a whole week traveling through Northern Europe with Chloe, so he must have been tired. Then he flew 9 hours back home, and the moment he landed, he drove straight to Rosewood Villa to pick me up. He told someone to prepare a cake, and even asked the housekeeper to buy fresh ingredients. As soon as we got home, he went straight into the kitchen and cooked an entire table full of dishes himself. He was so busy he hadn't even had time to change his clothes just to celebrate my birthday. If this had been a few years ago, I probably would have been so moved that I'd cry, thinking I was the happiest woman in the world. But not this year. This year, I didn't feel touched at all. In fact, I felt irritated. I stared straight into his eyes, my face expressionless. "Divorce. Divorce. Divorce. Did you hear me clearly? If not, I'll say it again. Just take it as real." Ethan's expression instantly turned cold. His jaw tightened, his teeth clenched, and the muscles along his face tensed sharply. He slammed his hand against the chair, producing a harsh crack. "Lena, that's enough. How long are you going to keep this up? Do you think this is fun?" He took a few deep breaths, forcing himself to calm down. "I didn't forget your birthday. I came back on time. Isn't that enough? I'm going upstairs to shower. Calm down." With that, he turned around and went upstairs. I looked at the sweet, creamy cake on the table and the steaming dishes still giving off heat. Something in me twisted. Why did he think making it home for my birthday mattered so much? My friends had already prepared fireworks, fine wine, and even some handsome guys. I could have had a perfect birthday. But because of Ethan's sudden appearance, everything was ruined. He had shown up at the party, gentle and composed, his voice full of affection as he took my hand. Smiling politely at my friends, he said, "Mind if I borrow Lena for the night?" Then he pulled me away with quiet force. I didn't resist, didn't struggle, I even smiled. Not because I was happy, but because I'd long learned how to keep up appearances. While Ethan was showering upstairs, I sat on the sofa smoking. The phone rang just as I was finishing my second cigarette. It was Chloe. The ringtone went on for half a minute. I just stared at the screen silently and didn't answer. I stubbed out the cigarette, poured myself a glass of wine, and just as I raised it to my lips, the phone rang again. It was still Chloe. I pressed answer and turned on the speaker. Her voice came through, sharp and arrogant. "Where's Ethan? Put him on the phone." I didn't reply. I finished my drink instead. "Lena, say something. I know you're listening. Tell Ethan to pick up. I need to talk to him." If his phone weren't turned off, do you think I'd be calling you?" This is so annoying. Her angry tone made me smirk coldly. "He's in the shower. What do you need?" There was silence. Then, a few seconds later, her voice turned shrill and bitter. "You two are really taking advantage of your time together, huh? Is sleeping with him the only thing you know how to do? Pathetic." I let out a laugh. "We're married, Chloe. Sleeping together is perfectly legal. The police don't care, so why should you? Or should he stay pure just for you?" "What did you just say, Lena?" she snapped furiously. "I wouldn't sleep with him even if you begged me. Maybe he's special to you, but to me, he's nothing." Her tone was full of fake confidence, but I didn't bother arguing. "So what do you actually want?" I said flatly. "If you're not going to talk, I'll hang up." "The passcode?" Chloe blurted out quickly. "What's the code to his house?" "It's this long, stupid number. I can't remember it, and it's driving me insane." 25440, 25441, I said calmly. The passcode was the same one that unlocked every one of Ethan's houses, and it was also the passcode to his phone screen. He had never once changed it all these years. I once asked him what those 6 digits meant. He had replied casually, "Nothing. I just made it up." Back then, I actually believed him. Later one day, I opened his phone using the T9 keyboard and entered that same sequence of numbers. 2 words appeared on the screen, Chloe Adams. I didn't say a word. I turned off the phone and tossed it aside, then poured myself another glass of wine. Right then, Ethan came out of the bathroom, still wrapped in a bathrobe, towel in hand as he dried his hair. I handed him a stack of papers. He frowned. "What's this?" "The divorce papers," I said flatly. "Sign them." Ethan's expression turned cold. Without saying a word, he brushed past me toward the wine cabinet. In a sudden surge of anger, I swept my arm across the table, sending all the dishes crashing to the floor. The sound of shattering plates echoed sharply through the quiet night. Ethan spun around and stepped closer, anger flaring in his eyes. "What the hell do you want from me, Lena? Are you doing this just because I didn't make it back in time for your birthday?" I let out a cold laugh. "You think too highly of yourself. Don't act like you're the center of the universe. You can either sign the divorce papers quietly, or we'll fight it out until one of us drops and then you can sign." Ethan's jaw tightened. He clenched his fists and threw the towel to the ground. "It's impossible to talk to you." He turned and started toward the stairs again. "Chloe just called," I said suddenly. "She said she couldn't reach you. She doesn't know the passcode to your house. She can't get in." Ethan stopped dead in his tracks. "Why didn't you say that earlier? Did you give her the code?" "Why would I?" I replied coldly. His brows furrowed. Without another word, he hurried upstairs to get dressed. But as he turned, I lunged forward and kicked him hard in the back. He stumbled and fell, and before he could react, I pressed my knee into his spine and twisted his arms behind him. Ethan groaned in pain and shouted, "Lena, what the hell are you doing?" I leaned down close to his face and slapped the divorce papers against his cheek. "Sign the damn papers. If you don't, you're not leaving this house, and your little princess can freeze all night for all I care." This time, Ethan was silent for a long moment. Then, his voice came low and calm. "You know what I hate most about you? It's that you always resort to violence." My relationship with Ethan had always been complicated. In the poorest years of our lives, we lived in the same apartment building, one floor apart, yet we had never spoken a word to each other. My mother was beautiful. She had me at 19, and ever since men had constantly hovered around her. My grandmother couldn't bear to see it and decided to raise me as if I were a boy. She sent me to the boxing coach who lived downstairs to learn self-defense. That coach was built like a tank, all muscle and discipline, but his son was the complete opposite. Delicate, pale, and frail as a reed. That son was Ethan. His father was my coach. When I was a kid, I was the one who took Ethan out to play. I protected him, looked after him, even called him my little brother. For 15 years, that's how it was. I stood behind him, shielding him from everything. Until my grandmother passed away and his father died soon after. We became two orphans with no one to rely on but each other. You'd think that would bring us closer, that we'd cling to each other to survive. But strangely, for no clear reason, Ethan began to drift away from me. I wasn't stupid. I could feel his growing distance, so I stopped humiliating myself by chasing after him. He was handsome, smart, but cold and weak in health, never really fitting in anywhere. When we entered high school, some of the boys started resenting him. I overheard a few of the basketball players sneering, "That pale pretty boy is so annoying. Let's break one of his fingers and see how he acts then." Ethan's fingers, the very tools he used to study, to write, to change his future. I followed those boys and used the combat skills Ethan's father had taught me to give them a beating they wouldn't forget. I got hurt too. But it didn't matter. My skin was thick enough to take it. Afterward, I slung my bag over my shoulder and walked upstairs. Ethan had waited for me in the dark that night. When I came out, he grabbed my wrist and pulled me home. Without saying much, he took out a first aid kit and skillfully treated my wounds. That was the first time I'd ever stepped into his house. After his father died, he'd been saving someone when it happened. With his skills, he could have easily handled those men, but one of them had a knife. The blade stabbed into his stomach, was pulled out, and then stabbed in again. He died before he could see his son one last time. The man he'd saved moved away that very night, disappearing without a trace. The one who stabbed him went to prison but never paid a single cent in compensation. Ethan had knelt in front of his father's grave, his face completely blank. He said his father deserved it, that he had brought it on himself for always thinking he was right. He told me what he hated most were people who used violence to solve their problems. From that day on, he stopped talking to me. That same night, as he was cleaning my wounds, he had bowed his head and said quietly, "Lena, stop getting into fights, especially not for me." It had been a long time since I'd seen Ethan look as worn out as he did tonight. He pressed his signature hard onto the last page of the divorce papers, then flung the stack to the ground, got dressed, and walked out coldly. I slept like a baby that night. The next morning, I called a moving company to clear out my things. By the time Ethan came back, the workers were already carrying out a huge oil painting. "What are you doing? Who told you to touch that?" He barked the moment he stepped out of the car, storming toward them with fury written all over his face. The workers froze, glancing at one another in confusion. I walked out calmly. "I told them to take it. What about it?" Ethan took a deep breath, trying to stay composed. "What are you trying to pull this time? That's my painting, isn't it?" "So it turns out you bought it," I said, letting out a dry laugh. "Why didn't you tell me? How annoying." Chloe stepped out from the passenger seat. Her tone said she was irritated, but her eyes sparkled as she looked at the painting, full of admiration and delight. Ethan froze for a second, instinctively glancing my way. I smiled faintly. "I won't take credit for it. It was me who bought it. I must have been blind back then, wasting nearly $20,000 on this thing. Thinking about it now makes me sick." That was back when Ethan was struggling to start his business. He was so busy, he barely had time to breathe, but he still made time for me. Once, he took me to an art exhibition. I didn't understand art at all. I couldn't tell what was good or bad, but I noticed how long he stood in front of one oil painting, unable to tear his eyes away. When we left, he kept glancing back at it. So I scrimped and saved for months, no years, sacrificed meals, clothes, everything I could to buy that painting as a birthday gift for him. Later, as we moved from one place to another, the houses got bigger, grander, but that painting always came with us. I used to think he treasured it because it was something I had given him. Until the day he returned from Hong Kong with Chloe. One afternoon, Chloe was painting in the courtyard. I noticed the signature in the corner of her canvas. It was identical to the one on that oil painting. How did it feel, realizing that your world had just been shattered into pieces? It's hard to describe. I just remember squatting on the floor for a long time, my face pale, the metallic taste of blood in my mouth because I'd bitten down on my lips so hard. My words must have struck a nerve because Chloe's expression twisted in anger. She lunged at me. "What the hell do you mean by that?" Ethan reacted fast, grabbing her arm before she could reach me. "You're defending her?" Chloe shouted, eyes wide in disbelief. She jerked her arm free, her eyes filling with tears, then spun around to leave. Ethan still held her wrist lightly. His tone softened. "Come on, get in the car and wait for me. I'll take you to meet Director Pham in a bit." Chloe puffed her cheeks in frustration and glared at me sharply before finally getting into the car. Ethan turned as if to speak, but I cut him off with a half smile. "Don't worry, Ethan. I know you were pretending to stop her. You were really just protecting her. But you don't need to worry. I won't touch her. Hurting myself over her isn't worth it." Ethan's face went rigid for a few seconds, but he was too composed to let it show for long. "Lena, stop overthinking everything. I'm just helping Chloe out because of what we used to have. Don't project your filthy thoughts onto me. And her. Fake." That was the only word I could think of to describe her. "No, actually," I laughed coldly. "It's not that you don't want to, Ethan. It's that you don't deserve to." Chloe was born with everything. When Ethan and I barely had $5 of allowance a day, the hair clip she wore on her head was worth $12,000. A princess like her was someone we could never have even dreamed of approaching. And yet, that year, she transferred to our high school, supposedly just for a year. The moment she arrived, the arrogant little princess set her sights on Ethan. "Hey, can I sit next to you?" she had asked. "No. Can you help me with this homework?" "I'm busy." "Ethan, I like you." "I don't like you." Rejected again and again, Chloe lost her mind. She started targeting Ethan, spilling milk all over his test papers, dumping soup on him at lunch, mocking him for not even owning a new pair of shoes, and once even accusing him of stealing her fountain pen. Ethan told me to stay out of it, that he could handle it himself. But the truth was, his grades started slipping. I couldn't stand by and watch anymore. I went to find Chloe on my own and warned her to leave Ethan alone, or else I wouldn't be polite about it. That time, though, Ethan got genuinely angry. He forced me to apologize to Chloe and even carried her home on his back. He told me, "Chloe's someone we can't afford to offend. All we can do is endure it until we don't have to bow to anyone anymore." I'd always thought Ethan hated Chloe. But people are complicated. There's no such thing as pure hate or pure love, just a mess of both tangled together. Now, standing there in the present, Ethan didn't even glance at the moving crew bustling around the villa. He just grabbed a few important documents, turned to leave, and said flatly, "Do whatever you want." So I did exactly that. I threw out the oil painting, tossed our wedding photos, dumped the bed from the master bedroom, and even cleared out every last piece of his clothing from the closet. When the last moving truck loaded up and pulled away, it took everything with it. My things, my memories, my patience. That night, I spread a mattress on the floor of the half-empty house. I tossed and turned until nearly dawn, before finally falling asleep. When I woke up, I was lying neatly in the bed that had been tidied up sometime in the night. I wasn't surprised. I didn't think I'd sleepwalked, and I didn't think a thief had broken in. The only person who could have found this place was Ethan. Sure enough, when I stepped out of the bedroom, he was in the kitchen, cooking noodles. Ethan had always been a fast learner. Back in our poor days, when we couldn't even afford instant food, he had learned to make everything from scratch. Rice, stir-fried vegetables, soup. Whatever it was, he mastered it on the first try. I, on the other hand, was the complete opposite. He never understood. Can't you just follow the recipe for once? Why do you always have to improvise? And I never understood him either. It's just missing a bit of green onion, so what? Why run downstairs just for that? Those chaotic days were full of the ordinary warmth of daily life. But looking back, they feel like another lifetime. "You're awake," he said without turning around. "Go wash up and have breakfast." I stood still, not moving an inch. "This house is under my name. Don't come here anymore." The hand stirring the noodles froze. He turned off the stove, shut off the vent, and faced me. "I promise," he said evenly, "Chloe's presence won't affect our marriage. You'll always be Mrs. Carter. Isn't that enough for you?" But that was exactly the problem. That was what I wasn't satisfied with. He thought I should swallow my resentment quietly, pretend everything was fine. Did he even realize how long it had taken me to finally have a few days of peace? 2 days ago had been my 30th birthday. 10 months before that, I was pregnant. 6 months before that, Ethan's company went public. When we were 18, we both got into college. Ethan started dabbling in stocks, trying his hand in finance while developing software on the side. I wasn't as smart as he was, so I made small money reselling goods online and later worked as a freelance fitness coach. By sophomore year, Ethan had already started saving. As Ethan started earning some capital, his confidence grew. I rented a small storefront near campus and opened a little shop, my first taste of being my own boss. During the second semester that year, he lost everything in a bad investment. I sold off the entire store, gathered all my savings, and helped fill the hole in his finances. At 20, I'd never once lacked the courage to start over. He promised to give me a good life. I told him we'd build it together. He wrote code and developed software, while I worked as a personal trainer, teaching clients one-on-one. Later, when he wanted to start his own business and needed seed funding, I once again handed over all my money and even took out a large loan. Ethan sold the old house in his hometown too. We risked everything, and in the end, he succeeded. From a small company to a large corporation, and finally, to a public listing, it took him 7 years. During those 7 years, I worked for him without pay for the first 3. For the next 2, he supported me. Once at a high school reunion, everyone was playing Truth or Dare. Ethan chose Truth. The question was, if you had another chance, would you choose Lena or Chloe? The moment I heard that, my entire body went rigid. But Ethan didn't even hesitate. "Of course, I'd still choose Lena," he said with a laugh. 100 times over, it would still be Lena. A friend pressed him, teasing, "You sure about that?" They had all stepped out to the balcony for a smoke, and Ethan had left his phone behind. I picked it up to bring it to him, and as I approached the door, I caught his voice drifting through the open window. "Back then, we were so poor," he said. "If Chloe had chosen me, she'd only have suffered. She's a rich girl, how could she have endured all that hardship? Lena's different, she doesn't fear pain." The feeling that washed over me then was strange, almost unreal. Even now, when I think back to it, it's like I wasn't the one who heard those words. It was like watching a play from the audience, listening to someone else's story. I didn't feel anger or sadness or even pain, just complete numbness. I didn't confront Ethan. I didn't argue or make a scene. 3 months passed in silence, so quiet that even now, I can't remember what I thought during that time, or what I did. You don't understand, do you? I didn't either, not at first. It wasn't until much later that I learned about something called dissociative response. It's a kind of self-defense mechanism the mind uses when it encounters unbearable pain, like a switch that temporarily disconnects you from what's hurting you, so you don't collapse completely. That must have been what happened to me. My grandmother once told me, "Live like wild grass, not a fragile flower. No matter how many times you're crushed, as long as there's still breath in you, you can grow back from the ashes." So I began rebuilding myself, from my body, to my skills, to my mindset. I trained harder, sculpted my figure, and started connecting with wealthy women, teaching them how to exercise and manage their health through customized routines and nutrition plans. They became the first clients of the fitness club I later opened. Once money started coming in, everything moved faster, more direct, more efficient, more profitable. At first, Ethan thought I was just wasting time, his eyes full of quiet disdain. But when I opened my first branch location, he actually showed up to the grand opening. He wrapped an arm around my waist as the ribbon was cut, his eyes holding something I hadn't seen in a long time: respect, maybe even pride. I grew busier and busier, teaching classes, live streaming sessions, recording online courses, giving talks. When someone starts moving forward with everything they have, their mind expands like wild vines, spreading in all directions until it forms its own network. And from that moment, I began cutting away each thread that still tied me to Ethan. "Ethan," I told him one night, "I just want peace. Maybe we're the kind of people who can share hardship but not wealth. Whatever happens between you and Chloe, that's your business. Just don't drag me into it." "I'm serious," I told him coldly. "Tomorrow morning, meet me at the Civil Affairs Bureau. Now get out of my house." Every word I said only added fuel to the fire. Ethan's eyes reddened with rage. "How many times do I have to tell you?" he shouted. "There's nothing going on between me and Chloe. How many times do I have to say it before you believe me?" Emotions are contagious. At first, I was calm, but being yelled at like that lit something inside me. "You think I've been keeping quiet all this time because I'm nice?" I snapped. "Chloe's 30 years old, and she's still throwing herself into the entertainment industry. That can't be easy, right? But I know you've got enough money to lift her up however you want. So what if I go public and accuse her of breaking up my marriage? What then?" Ethan opened his mouth to say something, but I cut him off sharply. "Save it. If I don't see you at the Civil Affairs Bureau tomorrow, you can explain yourself to the media instead." Ethan left 2 hours ago. 2 hours after that, Chloe called. She didn't waste time with small talk, just gave me an address and said, "Let's meet and talk." I stared at the call log for nearly 5 seconds, silent for a long while, before deleting her number and blocking her completely. But Chloe had been spoiled all her life, first by her parents and after her family went bankrupt, by Ethan. He'd pampered her so much she thought the whole world should tolerate and bend to her whims. So of course, she showed up at my main gym in person, wearing dark sunglasses, marching straight into my office and ordering coldly, "Tell Lena to come out and see me." Coach Tyler happened to call me while I was in the middle of training. He asked how I wanted to handle it. I told him not to worry and dialed Ethan. He didn't pick up. I frowned and called his assistant, who also happened to be Chloe's manager. "Yes, Ms. Lane, how can I help you?" she answered politely. "Tell Ethan to manage his people properly," I said flatly. "If she causes trouble again, I'll hand everything over to the press." Less than 30 minutes later, Chloe stormed out of the building, furious. Before leaving, she smashed my coffee mug against the floor. I could already guess what she had wanted to say. Probably the same nonsense as always. How she didn't care about Ethan, how he meant nothing to her, how whatever happened between him and me had nothing to do with her. That she was focused on her career and didn't have time to fight over a man. She'd said it so many times that she probably believed it herself. At 8 the next morning, I arrived at the Civil Affairs Bureau on time. I waited half an hour, but Ethan never showed. I called him, and before I could even speak, his irritated voice came through the line, tight with frustration. "I'm on my way, just wait." So I waited, another hour. By the time his car finally pulled into the lot, I was seconds away from losing it. Ethan stepped out from the driver's side, but instead of locking the car, he walked around and opened the passenger door. The moment I saw who stepped out, my stomach dropped. Chloe climbed out, frowning, checking her reflection in the mirror as she complained, "You are driving too fast. Look at this, my eyebrows are uneven now. See, don't I look terrible?" She leaned closer to him, pouting, "Don't I look awful?" Ethan stiffened and subtly stepped aside before glancing at me. Maybe it was my expression, too calm, too cold, but his face tightened. "Didn't you say you wanted to talk to Lena?" he said quietly to Chloe. Chloe's movements froze for a second. I couldn't see her full face, but half of it was enough. She wasn't happy. She walked over to me and said sharply, "You don't have to make such a scene. I've said it 100 times, there's nothing between me and Ethan. If you want a divorce, then get one, but don't drag me into it. I have no responsibility here." I stared at her, my voice low and steady. "No, what I really don't understand," I said, "is this. Do you honestly think there's nothing between a man and a woman besides love? Do you think I can't live without a man?" I didn't even bother finishing the thought. I lowered my head and scrolled through my phone, completely ignoring her. That deliberate indifference made Chloe furious. "Lena, do you even know what manners are? I'm talking to you." Just then, Ethan's phone chimed with a new message notification. I raised my head, my voice calm but icy. "If I don't say something, you two really think I'm that easy to push around?" I stared coldly at Chloe. "You're the one who can't live without a man. So shameless, yet you still think you're better than everyone else. Didn't you use a man to climb into the entertainment industry? And you keep saying that you and Ethan are innocent? What kind of innocent man and woman strip naked in the same room? I'm not wasting another second on either of you." I pointed toward Chloe's car. "Get back in your car." Then I turned to Ethan. "And you, come with me to file for divorce." Chloe's face twisted with rage, ready to yell again, but Ethan caught her by the arm. His face was ashen, worse than I'd ever seen it. His knuckles went white as he clutched his phone, because I had just sent him 2 photos and a video. In the first photo, Chloe was lying in his arms, wrapped only in a towel. In the second, Ethan was kneeling on one knee while Chloe rested her foot on his thigh. And the video, well, that was even more telling. In a hotel room, Chloe stood with her back to the camera, slipping off her coat, while Ethan's tie hung loose around his neck as he reached up to close the curtains. Ethan's voice dropped low. "How did you get that video? Did you hire someone to film it?" I shook my head, unbothered. "No, the person who recorded it came to me first. He asked for $4 million. I didn't want to pay that much, so I gave him your contact instead. There's nothing between us." Chloe stammered, panicked, her voice cracking. I ignored her completely, keeping my eyes locked on Ethan. "Whether you did or didn't doesn't really matter. If you didn't, then you wouldn't have paid him $4 million, would you?" I knew they probably hadn't slept together, not yet. Chloe still thought highly of herself. She wouldn't let Ethan touch her so easily, because if she did, her so-called worth would plummet overnight. But none of that mattered anymore. What mattered was that there was no way to prove they hadn't. The fallout from a scandal like that would be worth far more than $4 million. "The only reason I haven't released it," I said evenly, "is because I still hold shares in your company. If the stock price crashes, I lose too. But don't push me, Ethan." With that, I turned and walked toward the elevator. I rode from basement level 1 up to the 3rd floor. When the doors opened, Ethan was already there, having caught up to me. He didn't say a word, not even once. As we walked down the hall together, we took a number and sat in silence. "Are both parties confirming the divorce?" the clerk asked. Yes, I answered. Yes, Ethan echoed quietly beside me. 24 years of knowing each other, 5 years of marriage, one child who never made it into this world, and just like that, it was over. When I stepped out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, I tilted my head toward the sky. My nose stung and a vague, indescribable emotion welled up inside me. I didn't even know what it was. On impulse, I got in my car and took the highway back to the city where Ethan and I had once lived. I went to the cemetery first to light incense for my grandmother, then to Ethan's father's grave. I sat beside it for a long while. That tall, gentle man had once told me, "Lena, protect Ethan for me, okay? But remember, protect yourself first." When I was younger, I never understood my grandmother either. Why she'd raised me like a boy. Why she made me cut my hair short, forbade me from wearing dresses, and forced me to train my body. She never allowed me to accept anything from anyone, not even candy or small gifts. In middle school, a boy once gave me a love letter. I found it amusing, even kind of exciting, but when my grandmother discovered it, she tore it to pieces and locked herself in her room, crying for hours. Her harshness used to make me rebel. I even ran away from home once. The first and only time she ever hit me was that day, a sharp slap across my face. Then she pulled me into her arms and held me tight. I cried, clinging to her frail hands as she whispered, "I don't have much time left. After I'm gone, what will you do? Promise me, you must never walk the same path your mother did. You'll destroy yourself." My grandmother was never one for grand lessons or flowery words. She couldn't explain why beauty, when misused, could ruin a person. She only knew that her daughter, my mother, had been beautiful, but had lived wrongly. She'd gotten pregnant out of wedlock, run off with a married man, selfish and irresponsible. My grandmother only ever hoped that her granddaughter would live a proper, decent life. And I suppose, in a way, I didn't disappoint her, but I also never let her rest in peace. For a long time, I cried at her grave every week. But now I finally felt fine. In fact, better than I'd felt in years. Ethan and I spent months sorting out the division of our assets. Everything that needed transferring was transferred. Everything that needed to be renamed was renamed. When we were drafting the divorce settlement, the lawyer told me, "If you want it done fast, you'll have to concede some benefits. If you want to keep every advantage, it'll take time." I thought about it for a long time. In the end, I chose the most balanced, fair way to divide everything. When Ethan signed the agreement, he didn't look closely. But when he read it again later, he stayed silent for a long time. "You're becoming more and more like a rational businesswoman," he said quietly. "Successful and logical." "I didn't shortchange you," I replied. "I know," he said, shaking his head. "That's not what I meant." Work got busier and busier for me. I had less and less reason to contact Ethan. Meanwhile, Chloe joined a film crew, playing a supporting role that she was clearly unhappy about. She carried that bad mood everywhere, snapping at everyone around her. Mrs. Tran, the wife of one of the investors, told me about it during a training session. Her husband was one of the people backing Ethan's latest project. Apparently, the director had taken out his frustrations on their team because of Chloe. Mrs. Tran rolled her eyes. "I honestly don't know what Ethan sees in that woman," she said. "She's not young, she's not that pretty, and her personality's a nightmare. He's just asking for trouble." I helped her stretch her waist and smiled. "That's human nature, isn't it? We always crave what we can't have and think what's out of reach must be precious. Women like her, those so-called white moonlight types, still have a dangerous kind of allure." Then it hit me with a trace of irony. I had become his white moonlight now. That day, Ethan called me out of the blue. "I ran out of shampoo," he said. "What's the brand you always buy?" I was on the treadmill, breathing hard. "Ask the housekeeper," I said flatly. "She orders it on subscription." He paused for a few seconds. "What are you doing right now?" I didn't answer. I just hung up. Less than 2 days later, in the middle of the night, Ethan's assistant called. "Miss Lane, the CEO's been drinking heavily. He's refusing to let anyone near him. Could you come pick him up?" I stared at the ceiling for a long time before typing back 3 words. "Can't do that." That afternoon, Ethan called again. His voice was weak. "The doctor's asking if I'm allergic to any medications," he said. "But I don't know the answer." It was then that I started to feel something strange. something I couldn't quite name. I didn't speak, but I could hear his soft breathing through the phone. It had been so long since there'd been such a quiet moment between us. We were both always busy. When we did speak, it was only about practical things, never a word wasted. People say the happiest couples are the ones who can talk about nothing at all. Because that's what marriage is, being willing to waste time together, even when it's boring. But something that simple had become impossible for us. "Ethan," I said quietly, "if you keep calling me this often, I'll start to think you actually regret it." His breathing hitched, then grew sharper. "Regret what?" he asked, voice low. "I never wanted this divorce." "You did. You forced it. You pushed me." "Yes," I said softly. "I pushed you." I let out a quiet laugh. "But isn't that ridiculous? We were husband and wife, and yet I was able to force you, using another woman as leverage." He went silent. "You said I forced you," I continued coldly. "Then tell me, how do you explain the photos of you two? Her in your arms, both of you half-dressed in that hotel room? Was that what you call innocent? Was I just supposed to watch and pretend not to see?" I already told them you have no history of allergies," I said flatly. "If it's not absolutely necessary, don't contact me again." A few days later, I attended Mrs. Tran's birthday banquet. I was on the guest list. By the time I arrived, the party was already in full swing. I handed her my gift, and she pulled me aside to chat for quite a while. When another group of guests came over, she turned to call someone across the room, dragged a man over, and pushed him toward me. "This is my younger brother," she said cheerfully. "Keep an eye on him for me, will you? He's all yours to boss around." Then she lifted her gown slightly and glided off to greet others, leaving the two of us facing each other. The man reacted quickly, smiling politely as he raised his glass. "I'm Nathan Chu," he said. "And you are Lena Lane." Nathan was one of those people who instantly put others at ease, charming, respectful, without a trace of arrogance. Conversation came easily. When he found out I worked in fitness and health, he rubbed the back of his neck and said, "That's perfect. My shoulders and neck have been killing me lately. Do you have any exercises that might help?" I set down my glass. "Why don't I take your pulse first, Mr. Chu? See what's really going on?" He chuckled, slightly amused. "You can read pulses?" "A little," I said with a smile. "Many of my female clients don't just train, they also need help balancing their health. I often bring in a traditional medicine specialist to consult with them, and I studied with him for a while. Helps me seem a bit more professional when I meet potential clients like you." In traditional medicine, there are 4 diagnostic methods: observation, listening, questioning, and pulse reading. Personally, I only use the first 3. Pulse diagnosis is mostly for show. It's not precise enough to uncover deep issues, but you can still pick up basic signs. Like with Nathan, his primary pulse was taut, the left pulse firm but weak under pressure, while the right one was deep and thin. "You've been staying up late lately, haven't you?" I said. "Your liver energy's stagnant. It's nothing serious, but I bet you've been getting headaches." Nathan's eyes widened, clearly surprised. "That's exactly right." He grinned and gave me a thumbs up. "You're good, Miss Lane. I've had a mild headache all day, actually." I glanced around and nodded toward a quieter corner. "Come on, I'll press a few acupoints for you. It won't cure it, but it'll ease the discomfort." We were just about to head toward the lounge when someone suddenly grabbed my wrist. I turned around. It was Ethan. His face was tense, his expression stormy, eyes fixed on Nathan. "What's going on?" I asked sharply. Nathan frowned. "Do you need me to stay?" I smiled at him lightly. "Give me a minute." Ethan pulled me away before I could say more, but I yanked my arm free. "What is it now? Who even is that to you?" He ignored my question completely, his voice tight. "Who was that man?" His evasiveness told me everything. I knew he'd come here just to pick a fight. I turned to walk away, but he grabbed my arm again. I faced him squarely, my tone cold. "Ethan, you can't have everything. Not everything in this world belongs to you." For a brief moment I saw it, confusion and helplessness flickering in his eyes. Later that night, Nathan hitched a ride with me. I drove him home, and through the rearview mirror, I could see Ethan's car trailing behind us at a steady distance. When we reached Nathan's building, he turned to me and said warmly, "If you ever need help, don't hesitate to call me." I gave him a polite smile. "Thank you, but I'll be fine." Still, we exchanged numbers before he got out. I didn't drive home. Instead, I pulled over on a quiet street and sat there for a while. It wasn't long before Ethan's car pulled up behind me. He got out and walked toward me slowly. "Lena," he said quietly, "can we talk?" I didn't even look at him. "I don't think there's anything left for us to say." His lips parted like he wanted to explain, but before he could, Chloe suddenly appeared out of nowhere, running up and clutching his arm. "Why didn't you answer my calls? Ethan, what are you doing here?" she cried. "Do you have any idea what I've been through these past few days?" Ethan's brow furrowed. "You've been following me?" "So what if I have?" she snapped, glaring at him. "I just wanted to know what's been keeping you so busy. You said you'd protect me, didn't you? And now when I'm being humiliated, where are you? You're with her, aren't you?" She pointed straight at me, not the slightest bit restrained. "I thought you were supposed to be so impressive," she sneered. "Turns out you're just playing those cheap tricks to keep him tied to you, Lena. Don't you ever get tired of your own pathetic games?" "Shut your mouth," Ethan snapped, stepping in front of me to block her. Chloe's eyes widened in disbelief. "You're protecting her? Ethan, you begged me to come with you. You said you'd take care of me, that you'd protect me. You," her voice broke. "You're a bastard." A vein pulsed hard at Ethan's temple. Every word that came out of Chloe's mouth only made his hands tighten further at his sides, the color draining from his knuckles. There was a time when her tears would have broken him, but now they only seemed to suffocate him. Then he heard the sound of a car door slamming behind him. He spun around. I was sitting in my car, staring straight into the rearview mirror, my expression flat. Without hesitation, I started the engine and drove off, leaving them standing there in the street. Not long after, Chloe's arrogance finally caught up with her. The director, fed up with her attitude, decided that it didn't matter who had pulled strings to get her the role. She was being replaced. Chloe couldn't take the humiliation. In a fit of rage, she scratched the director across the face during an argument. I stared at the photo someone had sent me, every red mark from her nails standing out clearly on his skin. "Post it," I told the person on the other end of the line. "But keep it vague. Let people guess who she is." I had known for a long time that divorce was never a clean process. If I wanted to end this once and for all, I had to strike decisively. And Chloe's little scandal had come at the perfect time. Getting a hold of her meant getting a hold of Ethan's weakness. Meanwhile, I waited for the right moment. Ethan's company had been publicly listed for over a year now. The stock lockup period was ending. One by one, I started selling off my shares, carefully, methodically, until I was completely out. Every step was perfectly legal, properly documented. By the time it was done, the assets I walked away with were more than enough to live comfortably for the rest of my life. Not long after, the incident at the film set blew up online. A minor actress had gone on a rampage and clawed the director's face. It shot to the top of the trending searches overnight. Among the thousands of comments, two theories dominated. Either she was a victim of mistreatment, or her background wasn't as simple as it seemed. Then a crew member spoke up. They said the actress was unprofessional, refused direction, acted entitled, and even once threw a lunchbox at a staff member. She was forced into the production by some investor, the post read. "If you want to keep a canary, keep it in a cage. Why let it out just to make everyone else miserable?" I waited quietly for Ethan's response. 24 hours passed. Nothing. Not a word. Not a statement. So while the internet buzzed with speculation about who the mysterious investor was, I released the second hint. A photo. A Rolls-Royce Cullinan. A man in the driver's seat, a woman beside him eating cherries, tossing the pits playfully into his hand. It didn't take long before Ethan's name surfaced, and with him, his company, and the fact that he was a married man with me as his wife. This time, the company acted fast. They released an official statement. "They're just friends. We reject all malicious speculation and reserve the right to pursue legal action." Almost at the same time, I posted something too. "Thank you for your concern. We're already divorced." In an instant, social media exploded. Rumors, mockery, and endless theories filled every feed. And right then, my phone rang. "Ethan, why?" he demanded. I drummed my fingers against the table, not bothering to deny it. "Because I'm not done." "When I had the miscarriage," I said evenly, "you made two choices. One, to send me to the hospital. 2, to get on a plane to Hong Kong to bring Chloe back, so I made 2 choices of my own. 1, to divorce you. 2, to make sure you both know what it feels like to hurt. Ethan hung up immediately, abruptly, almost violently. And then came the third strike. A video. Ethan and Chloe entering a hotel together late at night and not coming out until morning. A cheating husband, a mistress, betrayal, marriage, topics that never fail to ignite public outrage. It wasn't enough to destroy them completely, but it was enough to make them suffer. Just like I had. That night I had been drinking when it happened, an accident, a mistake, and I got pregnant. Even I didn't realize it at first. Around that same time, Chloe's family went bankrupt. When Ethan heard the news, he didn't hesitate for a second. He immediately told his assistant to book a flight. That day happened to be my grandmother's death anniversary. We were on the highway, stopping at a rest area, when I said quietly, "At least let me go light incense for her before you leave." He grew impatient. "I can't just ignore someone who's in trouble." "No one's dying, Ethan," I said. But in the moment he shoved me away in frustration, the child inside me was gone. For a few seconds he froze, completely panicked, then scooped me up and rushed me to the hospital. The miscarriage required anesthesia and a procedure. My lower abdomen felt icy cold. The pain came in waves so sharp it made me curl up on the bed. "Don't be sad," he murmured. "We'll have another baby someday." He tucked the blanket around me carefully, held my hand between his palms to warm it, and stayed until it was almost time for his flight. Then he left, for a week, and came back with Chloe. When I was discharged, life simply went back to how it had always been. Ethan sighed in relief and told me, "Chloe will be staying with us for a while. Take care of her for me." In any scandal involving a woman, the damage always cuts twice as deep as it does for a man. Amid the flood of insults telling her to get out of the industry, Chloe completely broke down. She came at me, screaming, her face twisted in rage. "Why would you do this to me?" she yelled. "What makes you think you're better than I am? Everything you have now, you got it because of Ethan. You're just lucky, that's all. But don't forget this, Lena. Ethan's loved me from the very beginning. You'll never measure up to me." I looked at her furious, distorted face and smiled faintly. "Ethan hasn't touched you, has he?" Her eyes widened. No, I know him. He wouldn't. Even when you throw yourself at him, even when you try to seduce him, he never crosses that line with you, does he?" That hit her exactly where it hurt. She lunged at me, her hand raised, but I didn't flinch. I simply lifted my leg and kicked her sharply in the knee just as she came forward. Chloe screamed, collapsing to the floor, her face pale with pain and a flicker of fear in her eyes. You hit me." "I hit you?" "No," I said coolly. "You just got on your knees to apologize, didn't you?" "Lena," she shrieked, her voice trembling. I grabbed a nearby chair and raised it high. She let out a startled cry, freezing in place. The chair stopped just inches from her ear. Her eyes were full of terror, her whole body shaking, tears spilling down her cheeks. My face stayed blank. If I decide to hit someone, I don't hold back. Don't test me. When Ethan burst in, Chloe was still kneeling on the floor. She ran toward him, but he sidestepped her. His hand jerked sharply, signaling his assistant to take her away. Chloe was clearly unwilling but too frightened to protest. Her face flushed crimson, yet she didn't dare say another word. Ethan looked at me then, his entire body radiating exhaustion. His face was ashen, his eyes clouded with something heavy and dark, and looking at him, so worn out, so defeated, I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a flicker of satisfaction. The tightness in my chest finally eased. Ethan gave a weary, bitter smile. "You really hate me, don't you?" I spun the pen in my hand, leaning back in my chair. "Not hate," I said. "That's too strong a word. I just dislike you." There was a time I truly did hate him, fiercely, desperately. But later I realized hatred was too powerful an emotion. It didn't really fit what I felt. Disgust, weariness, those were closer to the truth. He must have felt the sting of those two simple words because his hand trembled slightly, his voice turning hoarse. "Lena, I never meant to hurt you. But you still chose Chloe, didn't you?" I asked quietly. He looked straight at me, his voice firm. "Yes." I tilted my head away, avoiding his gaze. "Then it has nothing to do with me anymore. Go." "Lena, please, get out, Ethan," I said coldly. To this day, I still don't know if he ever actually slept with Chloe. Maybe he didn't. I only said that to provoke her. But the reaction I got, the one I'd hoped for, was exactly what I wanted. Of course it was. I honestly didn't care whether Ethan had slept with Chloe or not. I just wanted to watch the show, to see them squirm, to make sure neither of them lived in peace. And now, I was certain, at least for the time being, Ethan wouldn't touch her again. As for Chloe, was she panicking? Probably. And that only made it more satisfying. There were still so many scenes left to unfold, and I wasn't about to miss any of them. Of course, watching their downfall wasn't my entire life. I was busy too. During that time, Nathan Chu invited me to dinner twice. My friend Nina sent me a message filled with exclamation marks. "You're not seriously planning to be my sister-in-law, are you?" I replied with a line of question marks. "You're overthinking it. Ours was a perfectly platonic, mature friendship. Nathan was thoughtful, steady, and easy to talk to. Still, I wasn't naive. Men who had absolutely no interest in you wouldn't spend that much time with you. If a man chose to share his time, there was always a reason behind it." That night, I ended up giving Nathan a ride home. When we stopped, he smiled and asked, "Do you want to come in for a bit?" I laughed and shook my head. "No, I overate. I should go for a night run." I was a divorced woman in my 30s, well past the age of believing love would just fall from the sky. And as for anything physical, I'd been focusing on my health lately, so I was abstaining for now. By the time I got home, it was nearly an hour and a half later. As soon as I stepped out of the elevator, I froze. Ethan was sitting on the floor outside my apartment door, his back slumped against it, long legs drawn up awkwardly. He looked pitiful, honestly. I stared at him for a few seconds, then nudged him lightly with my foot. He lifted his head weakly, eyes glassy. "You have a fever," I said. Then, before I could react, he collapsed, right there at my doorstep. For a moment, I debated whether to leave him there or kick him again just to be sure. In the end, some faint trace of decency won out, and I called his assistant. After that, I used my foot to shove him aside so I could get into my apartment. About 40 minutes later, I heard noise in the hall. Presumably, someone had come to take him away. I shrugged. A fever doesn't kill anyone. But apparently, it had hit him harder than I thought. A few days later, he appeared before me again, wearing a hospital gown, eyes bloodshot and rimmed with red. "She wouldn't treat me like this," he said hoarsely. "Lena would never leave me like that." The way he said it was strange. He spoke my name like I was someone else, like Lena was a woman separate from me, one who still loved him. And in a way, I understood. There was a time when that Lena did exist. The one who silently protected him, cleared his path, made sure he could study without worry. Looking back, I could only see how foolish and naive I'd been. Both she and I had once loved Ethan so desperately it had broken us. How could I have been so stupid, so weak? But I was. Even now, I couldn't find sympathy for the version of me that had lived like that. Still, as I lowered my eyes, a hollow ache crept into my chest. "It's too late, Ethan," I said quietly. "There's too much between us now. We can't go back." "Does it hurt?" he asked, voice rough, his whole body trembling with exhaustion. "Yeah," I said softly. He exhaled heavily, like the air itself weighed him down. "I'll send Chloe away," he said finally, as if making a promise. But he didn't keep it. The very next day, Chloe was in his bed. Photos were sent directly to my phone, Chloe smirking triumphantly in his shirt, her message reading, "He's mine now." I laughed, because that meant only one thing: Chloe had officially taken herself out of the game. As for Ethan, there was a time I thought he was different. That his pride, his restraint, made him stand apart from other men. But later, I realized there was only one word that truly described him: actor. He pretended to hate Chloe, pretended to reject her, pretended to resist every advance. While inside, he'd been tangled up with her for years, unable to let go. He wasn't deeply in love the way people like to believe. If he truly had been, he never would have come to me in the first place. I walked beside him through every hardship and helped him climb each rung of success. I thought what we had was mutual love, a partnership built on effort and trust. But in the end, he saw me as someone only fit to share his struggles, never his glory. He enjoyed my loyalty and patience, yet longed for Chloe's sweetness at the same time. For years, I asked myself who he really loved. Eventually, I realized the truth. He didn't love either of us. He only ever loved himself. And Chloe? She was a spoiled heiress, arrogant, vindictive, unable to let go. The moment she realized that after lowering herself so far, Ethan still despised her, I knew exactly what she would do. She'd start plotting revenge, just like before. Let the dogs tear at each other. I didn't mind watching from a distance. I hummed a tune as I packed my suitcase, getting ready for a business trip to the capital, a 2-week training and exchange program. But before the trip was even over, Chloe pulled a stunt that stunned everyone. She walked into a police station with visible slap marks on her face, bruises around her neck, and Ethan's DNA on her body, accusing him of rape. When I heard the news, I froze for a moment. Ethan was going to prison. Nina was the one who told me. When I didn't respond right away, she frowned through the phone. "You're not actually sad about this, are you?" I laughed softly. "No, just surprised, I guess." Still, no matter how shocking the allegation, I knew that taking a case like that to trial wouldn't be easy. Chloe refused to withdraw her complaint, her eyes filled with fury every time she appeared in public. From the initial report, to the investigation, to the prosecution, and finally the trial, the entire process took nearly a year. During that time, countless people came to ask me questions, to dig for details. Some even tried to persuade me to speak on Ethan's behalf. I refused all of them, politely but firmly. My life went on as usual. Ethan and Chloe's scandal became nothing more than gossip fodder, a story to fill awkward silences over tea or drinks. The only thing of note was a message I received from Ethan's lawyer one day. He asked, "Do you regret ever meeting him?" I didn't answer, but I thought about it for a long time. No, I didn't regret it. Those years had been unbearably hard, like being submerged in ice water, every breath cold enough to hurt. The loneliness was worse than pain itself, wrapping around me like a vine, tightening until I couldn't breathe. Back then, I just needed someone, anyone, to sit beside me, to say a few meaningless words, enough to make life feel slightly less unbearable. Later, yes, he failed me. He hurt me in ways that pierced straight through, sharp as needles to the heart. But still, the time we shared was real. His presence, however flawed, gave me a space to breathe when I was drowning. So no, there was nothing to hate. At least for a little while, Ethan had been the person who made my world feel less dark. And that was enough. That's the end of the story.